Ah, ancient Greece, land of gods, philosophers, togas, and, if you're lucky, only a mild case of dysentery. You think you'd thrive, don't you? Waiting up in the golden glow of the Aegean sun, strolling past marble statues, casually debating Plato while munching on olives. Maybe you imagine a toga flapping dramatically in the Mediterranean breeze as you declare something noble like, "I shall invent democracy." Oh, darling, no. Let me tuck you in, fluff your pillow, and gently explain why you, with your air conditioning and Wi-Fi and functioning toothpaste, wouldn't make it past breakfast in ancient Greece. Before you get all cozy, take a moment to subscribe and let me know in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is for you. It's so lovely to see who's joining us from around the world. Slowly close your eyes. Welcome to ancient Greece. Population. Too many philosophers and not nearly enough sanitation. It's just past sunrise, and already you've made your first mistake, waking up. You open your eyes, expecting perhaps a view of rolling olive groves and white marble columns. But what you get is a ceiling made of reeds. Two spiders that appear to be arguing in a dialect older than time, and the unmistakable scent of wet goat. And yes, that is a goat next to you. Her name is Artemis. She's not yours. She just lives here, rent-free. Possibly with more social standing than you, depending on which city-state you've stumbled into. You attempt to stretch. Bold of you, considering your bed is a burlap sack stuffed with straw and regret. Your back cracks in several places. One of those might have been your spine saying goodbye. Now you're hungry. Oh, modern soul. You want pancakes, eggs, a cold brew coffee, maybe a cute brunch moment. But in ancient Greece, brunch is not a vibe. It's a punishment. Your breakfast is barley porridge. Again, always, forever. And if you're lucky, it's only mostly spoiled. If you're really lucky, your neighbour didn't mistake the barley jar for the one where he stores crushed fish guts. Again, you sip a ladleful because cups are for aristocrats, and immediately discover that flavour hasn't been invented yet. The porridge is cold, thin, and emotionally disappointing. Still hungry? That's adorable. There's also bread. Well, bread is basically a fossil. Dense, crumbly. It could be used as a weapon or a building material. Maybe both. You take a bite. It bites back. At this point the goat is judging you. She's eaten better this week. Ah, the chorus of the city-state begins. Someone's already yelling about taxes. Someone else is shouting about democracy. And neither of them are wearing pants. That's not surprising. Nobody's wearing much of anything, really. Fabric is expensive. And laundry? Darling, laundry is a luxury for future centuries. Here, if you own more than one tunic, you're either a demigod or a very successful olive oil smuggler. You try to leave the house. You trip on a loose stone. Ancient Greece. 1. You. 0. Outside, the streets are bustling. Mud paths, narrow alleys, and absolutely no concept of personal space. You're bumped, elbowed, possibly blessed or cursed. Hard to tell. The agora, or marketplace, is nearby, filled with vendors selling olives, cheese, and mild despair. Everything is sticky. No one knows why. You hear a man shout, "Opa!" and another man fall directly into a basket of figs. This is normal. You want to ask for directions. You try. You quickly learn your modern Greek lessons from that one app do not apply here. The dialect is different. Older. Dramatically yelly. Everyone sounds like they're about to either recite poetry or start a bar fight. Or both. Communication fails. A goat answers you instead. It's not Artemis, This is a different goat? No one explains. You sigh, you with your smartwatch tan line and your oat milk dependency. You thought you'd be the main character here. A philosopher, perhaps, or a warrior, maybe a tragic poet. But no, you're just a soft-skinned, sleep-deprived, barley-slurping extra in a chaotic pre-plumbing tragedy. And remember, it's still only mid-morning. You sit on a rock. It's the most stable thing you've encountered today. You consider your choices. You think about running home. But there's no home. There's no Wi-Fi. And most heartbreakingly of all, there's no snack drawer. You stare into the middle distance. The goat stares with you. Together you contemplate the very fabric of suffering. You've survived the first 2 hours, and all it cost you was your dignity, your breakfast, and possibly your ability to bend at the waist. You've made it, somehow. You've survived your first meal of barley grief, dodged a few existential goats, and now you feel the stirrings of cleanliness. A bath, you think? What a quaint and modern concept. But here in ancient Greece, bathing is less a hygiene routine and more a social experiment designed to test the limits of dignity, boundaries, and your nostrils. You want privacy? That's so future of you. You arrive at the local Balanean, a public bathhouse, which at first glance appears to be a perfectly nice place to be naked in public with 20 sweaty strangers. You step inside. Immediately the air shifts. It is warm, wet, and filled with the unmistakable scent of men who have opinions about Plato. Opinions they will share with you at length while scrubbing their thighs. You take a breath. Regret? It smells like hot limestone, ambition, and something vaguely feta adjacent. You look for a changing room. That's adorable. There are none, because in ancient Greece, modesty is reserved for funerals. Maybe, if you're rich. Here you simply remove your one single article of clothing and join the stew. Congratulations. You are now soup. You're in the water now. It's warm, which should be comforting, but somehow it feels judgmental. Someone near you sneezes directly into the steam. No one reacts, because this is normal. Next to you floats a man with a moustache that could be legally classified as a weapon. He introduces himself as Nikos the Oily. You don't ask why, but he tells you anyway. He is, as he puts it, well known in 3 villages and at least 1 myth. You believe him? Nikos is covered in a generous coating of olive oil, which, surprise, is how people clean themselves here. Yes. Soap? Never heard of her. Instead, people slather themselves in olive oil like they're trying to become part of a salad, then scrape it off using a small curved blade called a strigil. It is elegant. If your definition of elegant includes sharp objects and the complete removal of body hair by friction. Someone offers you a strigil. It looks like a torture device designed by someone who hates backs. You attempt to oil yourself. You drop the flask. It shatters. Now you're oily and you've angered a man named Thanos the clay merchant. He says something about dishonour and barley theft, but you're pretty sure he's just projecting. You try to relax. You close your eyes. You immediately hear a loud political debate about Athenian naval superiority. It involves shouting, splashing, and a strong argument that Sparta smells like defeat. A man named Diodoros launches into an impromptu poem about democracy. It's 20 stanzas long. You cannot leave. You are trapped in the bath. It is the ancient version of a group text that never ends. You look to escape, to dry off. Drying, however, is not a quick process. Towels? Number? That's an imported luxury. You get a rough linen cloth, last used by someone else, probably also named Nikos. You pat yourself dry. You succeed only in moving the oil around. Now you're both damp and shiny, like a morally confused seal. An elder priest walks in. Everyone stares at you. Apparently, you're standing in the sacred part of the bath reserved for higher citizens, which you are not. You apologise, slipping in the oil puddle you created. You land on Thanos' foot. He curses your lineage and challenges you to a foot race. Because that's a thing here. You decline, because you're bleeding slightly and your soul has left your body. You exit the bathhouse, humbled, dripping, and possibly more contaminated than when you entered. You are, in the loosest definition of the word, clean. Congratulations, you've completed your first ancient Greek bath, and all it cost you was your privacy, dignity, one eyebrow, and a toe you might never feel again. But hey, you smell like olives now. So there's that. You've made it through the morning. Barley breakfast, bathhouse trauma, and the enduring shame of slipping in oil in front of a man named Nikos. Now, your body, unaccustomed to barley-based nutrition, public scrubbing, and goat-induced allergies, has done the reasonable thing. It has given up. Your stomach is staging a quiet rebellion. Your head feels like it's being consulted by 10 philosophers at once. And your foot? Well, that toe you thought you stubbed? Yeah, it might be haunted. You decide it's time for medical help. Sweet summer child. You stagger into the nearest temple of Asclepios, god of medicine, and immediately wonder if you've accidentally walked into a snake sanctuary. You have? That's not an accident. That's the treatment. You see, in ancient Greece, healing is a spiritual experience, literally. If you want a doctor, you have to sleep in a temple, dream about divine messages, and hope the god of healing personally decides you're worth the trouble. That's the plan. Your consultation is a nap. A priest in a very flowy robe greets you. He asks what's wrong. You say everything. He nods solemnly and brings out a leech. You flinch. He tells you this is normal. You say you have a headache. He offers to drain blood from your inner thigh. You ask for a second opinion. He brings a larger leech. At this point, you remember you don't have health insurance, but also that might be a blessing. They tuck you into a straw bed beside a mosaic of someone dying very artistically. A sacred dog licks your face. You're told it's part of the healing process. Then come the snakes. Harmless, sacred snakes. They slither around you, whispering secrets. Probably. You hope they're secrets. You really hope they're not looking for a warm place to nap. A priest burns incense and begins chanting in ancient Greek. You understand none of it, but you're 80% sure he asks the gods whether your foot is cursed or merely philosophically inconvenient. You fall asleep, which is the treatment. You dream of olives and shame. You awaken to the soft sound of another patient throwing up into an amphora. The priest returns. He tells you the gods spoke to him in a vision. You are visited by Hermes, messenger of the gods. He said your digestive system is full of unbalanced humours, and probably also wind. The cure? More barley. Also goat cheese, fasting, inhaling fumes, and walking in circles while holding a small statue of Athena. You ask if maybe you could see a physician instead. The priest is offended. He is a physician. His cousin is also a midwife, a goat whisperer, and a tax consultant. He hands you a clay tablet with your prescription on it. Avoid figs. Consume 2 olives. Think pure thoughts. You pretend to understand. You pay him with a single coin, which he bites. He nods solemnly and declares you spiritually refreshed. You're still limping. You step outside. Your headache is still there. Your toe still pulses like it's planning a mutiny. But your soul? Oh, your soul has been thoroughly diagnosed, spiritually massaged, and mildly licked by snakes. You are, in the most generous terms possible, healed. You pass out from dehydration. So ends your journey into the gentle chaos of ancient Greek medicine, where the cure often hurts worse than the disease. And your main takeaway is that leeches were the real MVPs of public health. Ah, it's mealtime again. Or as it's more accurately known in ancient Greece, the daily existential question of whether anything in your bowl is technically edible. You wake up from your priest-sanctioned snake nap, hoping to finally indulge in a proper, satisfying meal. You dream of roasted lamb, maybe some baklava, perhaps a nice glass of wine. Adorable. Here's what you get. Lentils. Again. Cold. Brown. And oddly crunchy in places that should never be crunchy. You ask for meat. You're laughed at. Politely, but thoroughly. See, meat in ancient Greece isn't just food. It's a ceremonial event. You don't just eat meat. You sacrifice it first, to the gods, with incense and chanting. And a priest who definitely washed his hands sometime last week. And when it's all said and done, after the goat has been honoured, the omens read, and someone has made a vague speech about piety, you, the lowly mortal, get a single stringy bite of overcooked goat thigh. The rest? Burned for the gods. Because apparently Zeus is watching his carbs. But don't worry, there's barley. Again, always barley. Sometimes in flatbread form. Sometimes as porridge. Sometimes as soup, which is the same porridge with more water and lower self-esteem. You also get olives. Yes, those olives. The ones you keep picturing on an artisan cheese board. Except here, they're mostly pit and disappointment. There's cheese too. Goat cheese, naturally. Thick, tangy, slightly questionable. It has the texture of wet chalk and the taste of a dare. Wine. Yes, you can have wine. But first, let's water it down. Dramatically. Because drinking it straight would make you uncivilized. And we wouldn't want that, would we? Now you're sipping warm grape soup from a communal clay cup. It tastes like ancient regret and the bottom of a sock. Delicious. You wander through the agora again, hoping for something, anything, more exotic. You find fish that may or may not be fish, bread that doubles as construction material, honey. If you're very lucky and socially connected to someone with a beehive and zero self-preservation. You find a street vendor selling something called delicacies. It's grilled entrails on a stick. You ask what animal it came from. He winks. You black out. You sit by a crumbling wall, chewing on a fig you're 60% sure was stolen by a squirrel first. The sun sets behind you, warm and golden and mocking. Your stomach growls. A nearby child offers you half a boiled onion. It's the kindest thing anyone's done all day. You cry a little. You eat the onion anyway. Let's talk about your drip. You wake up, greasy, underfed, emotionally wobbly, and now it's time to face the world. But first, you must clothe yourself in the traditional style of the day. A large, itchy rectangle. Yes, that's it. A single piece of wool draped vaguely around your body, called a chiton if you're feeling fancy, and a himation if you want to make it fashionably impossible to pee without assistance. And no, it is not a toga. That's Roman. You're Greek. Here, you wrap your dignity in 8 feet of unhemmed, itchy fabric and hope for the best. Getting dressed is a process. There are no buttons, no zippers, no elastic, just physics and optimism. You fumble the cloth over one shoulder, then try to pin it with a brooch, a fibula, which looks suspiciously like a weapon. Probably because it was. Nothing says elegance like stabbing your outfit into place and praying it doesn't shift in the breeze. You look down. You've created a stylish sack. Congratulations. Your body is now wrapped like a forgotten loaf of sourdough. You're ready for the runway, assuming the runway is made of dirt and shame. Now comes the walking. You take a step. The fabric tangles around your knees. You immediately resemble a baby deer on a marble slope. You try to fix it. You make it worse. Somehow your arm is inside the hem. Your tunic is now both inside out and inside you. A goat stares, judging, as always. You consider washing your one precious garment. That's cute. Let's talk about laundry. Water must be carried by hand. Soap doesn't exist yet. Detergent. Honey, please. Laundry involves pounding your tunic with lye, ashes and rocks. That's right, rocks. Your delicates are scrubbed on stone, rinsed in goat-haunted water, and dried on a bush that might be sacred. You're not sure. You hope the gods are cool with it. Also, it takes days to dry, because the fabric is thicker than your remaining willpower. And let's not forget the chafing. Oh yes, the soft, constant, ancient friction of rough wool against every area you'd rather not mention. Underwear, optional. Comfort, illegal. But don't worry, you can accessorise. With sandals made of dried leather and the regrets of 1,000 cows. They're more decorative than functional, and provide the same level of support as your estranged uncle's financial advice. And if you're lucky, you'll own a second tunic, for winter, made of slightly thicker wool. Because nothing says cosy like sweating into a shag carpet wrapped around your internal organs. And so you wander the streets of Athens, wrapped in your itchy toga that isn't a toga, looking like a very philosophical burrito. You are now fashionably indistinguishable from everyone else, which is the goal, because expressing individuality with clothes, that's dangerous. Better to match the crowd and suffer together. You've survived ancient Greek fashion, and all it cost you was your skin, your flexibility, and any modern respect for the concept of pants. You've eaten the lentils, you've bathed in shame, you've wrapped yourself in depression wool, and now you're a citizen of Athens, or so you thought. Because before we go any further, let's gently, lovingly rip off the laurel crown and say it out loud. Ancient Greek democracy was mostly for guys. Rich guys. Rich guys who weren't slaves. Or women. Or foreigners. Or poor. You? Modern you? You're probably disqualified just for reading this in a comfortable bed. Still, let's pretend. Let's pretend you're a male, land-owning, Athenian-born, non-slave adult. If you're not, don't worry. Your role is to sit quietly and do everything while receiving 0 credit. You are now a citizen. Time to get political. You make your way to the Pnyx, the big old democratic hill where Athenian citizens gather to decide the fate of the city. It's hot, it's crowded, everyone's yelling. The man beside you smells like olives and philosophy. He is holding a turnip and an opinion. You ask someone what today's debate is about. They tell you, should we invade an island for no real reason, or just publicly shame that one guy who said fish prices are too high? Important things. Democracy in action. You raise your hand to speak. Someone throws a fig at your face. You're told, wait your turn. And also, who even are you? Because in ancient Greece, Free speech is a sport, and you're the ball. A prominent orator takes the stage. He's been talking for 45 minutes. He hasn't blinked once. He's quoting Homer, yelling about boats, and also crying a little. The crowd is loving it. You, however, are dehydrated, emotionally flattened, and 90% sure this is just an ancient TED talk on imperialism. Finally, your name is called. You shuffle forward, sweating. You take a breath. You open your mouth to speak, and immediately get interrupted by a man who insists the war will be over by winter if we just sacrifice another goat and yell at Sparta louder. The crowd cheers. You sit back down. You were not heard, but you did participate. Congratulations. You are now complicit. But the real kicker, that charming little detail that keeps democracy spicy, it's the slavery. Because for all the talk of freedom, this whole beautiful political experiment runs on the backs of people who have none. Enslaved people do everything. They cook, they clean, they farm, they raise the children of people who then go to the Knicks and scream about justice. You pass a slave on your way home. He's doing math. Actual math. He's smarter than you. You say nothing. Because here, justice is a luxury, and the system is built with astonishing hypocrisy, like a philosophical sandwich where the meat is freedom and the bread is other people's labour. So now, dear listener, you've survived your first foray into ancient democracy. You've debated loudly, you've voted emotionally, and you've realised that even in the birthplace of politics, the system was held together by charisma, classism, and that one guy who really hates taxes but owns 3 vineyards. You head home, disillusioned and lightly sunburned. The future of Athens? Still unclear. Your mental health? Currently seeking asylum in Macedonia. So far, you've survived linen-based clothing trauma, wine-flavoured regrets, and democracy so exclusive it might as well have been a country club with spears. But now we trade speeches for swords. And that brings us to warfare, honour, and sudden death. Glory through immediate regret because nothing says strategy, like screaming into a spear wall in leather sandals. Good morning, citizen soldier. Or should I say, hoplite, that's your new job. Not by choice, of course. You didn't get a little flyer asking if you'd like to explore a career in organised stabbing. No, you were voluntold. Because in ancient Greece, wars happened more often than lunch. And every man between the ages of vaguely strong and not yet buried is expected to pick up a spear and defend the homeland. You, tragically, qualify. You are issued your sacred tools of war, a doru, a heavy wooden spear, as long as your future is short. A hoplon, a circular shield made of wood and bronze, weighing as much as a small cow. A helmet, which feels like sticking your head inside a bronze pot and then being yelled at. Congratulations, you are now armoured, in theory. In reality, you're wearing a leather skirt, sandals, and 2 pounds of metal strapped to your face. You look like a very serious birthday balloon. Your commander shouts, "Phalanx formation!" You have no idea what that means, but you move toward the other confused men until everyone is standing shoulder to shoulder, breathing heavily and pretending they aren't crying inside. This is the phalanx. It's ancient Greece's greatest military innovation. A wall of shields and spears, moving in perfect unison. Until someone sneezes. Then it's chaos. The enemy approaches. You squint. They're wearing the exact same thing as you. You're 50% sure that guy in the middle is your cousin. Too late now. You brace. You scream. You charge. The sound is deafening. clashing bronze, splintering spears. Someone loses a sandal. Someone else loses a philosophical debate with a javelin. Your shield arm is numb. Your helmet smells like goat sweat and irony. And just when you think you've made progress, you trip. You fall to the ground. In the phalanx, this is a death sentence. Because the guy behind you can't stop. He has momentum and no depth perception. You're now a speed bump in the democracy machine. Eventually the shouting stops. One side wins, you don't know which, because you're lying in a ditch, concussed, hugging your helmet like a disappointed friend. You're carried back to the city on a cart full of sweaty survivors and expired idealism. You're praised for your bravery. You're given wine. And then told the city can't afford your medical care. But here's a medal and a handshake. Honour has been served, alongside several broken ribs. Your battle is over. You survived, which is already above average. Tomorrow you may heal, or limp dramatically through the agora, pretending your leg still works. Either way, you're now a veteran, which mostly means you've seen things, and you flinch when people shout, "Phalanx." Next, we move on to the truly dangerous battleground. Because in ancient Greece, watching a play could involve nudity, civic shame, and someone accidentally starting a religious riot with interpretive next. We move on to the truly dangerous battleground, the theatre. The chorus and public humiliation, where art attacks because nothing says culture like crying in a stone stadium with 10,000 strangers. You wake up. Your bones ache from honour. Your stomach is still negotiating with barley. But today there is something special. The Dionysia. A massive theatre festival in honour of Dionysus, god of wine, madness, and things that sound like a bad idea, but somehow keep getting funded. And you lucky, exhausted citizen, have front row seats. Not by choice, of course. Citizens must attend. It's civic duty. Like jury duty, if jury duty involved more shrieking and occasionally nudity. You arrive at the Theatre of Dionysus, built into the side of the Acropolis. A massive stone arena carved straight out of the earth, where acoustics are great, legroom is non-existent, and shade is illegal. You sit down. On rock. Because cushions are for cowards and people with less state-mandated patriotism. Around you, 10,000 people squeeze in, sweaty and judgmental. Someone's eating olives, loudly. Someone else is already drunk. A child nearby is dressed as Hermes and crying. This is theatre. The first play begins. It's a tragedy, because of course it is. A masked man stumbles onto the stage, screaming about betrayal, fate, and someone named Agamemnon. You're not sure who that is, but you're sure he's either dead, cursed, or married to a bloodthirsty widow with a flair for stabbing. The chorus appears. Ah yes, the chorus. A dozen men in identical masks, singing in perfect unison about doom, hubris, and the importance of obeying the gods or being turned into a shrub. They dance, they shout, they stare directly at you, as if your failure to appreciate poetic metre has personally offended Apollo. You cry a little. Quietly. The sun is now high in the sky. You are sweating through your only tunic. You are 7 plays deep. You have witnessed 4 suicides, 1 offstage murder, a woman disguised as a man disguised as fate, and a monologue so long you temporarily blacked out. Then comes the comedy. Ah, yes. The Greek comedy. The great relief. The comic balm. Until you realise it's satire of you and your neighbours and your city's policies, and also, bizarrely, of that time your general tripped on his own sandals and accidentally declared war on a hill. The lead actor waddles on stage wearing an enormous prosthetic. You can't look away. Everyone laughs. You laugh too, because not laughing gets you noticed. And being noticed means being written into next year's play as Drunken Fool number 3. You begin to miss the quiet dignity of war. It is evening now. You're emotionally eviscerated. You have learned the full arc of human suffering, as explained through interpretive chorus dance and violent bird metaphors. You are changed, also sunburnt, and you have no idea what the moral was. But the priest of Dionysus nods. So you nod too. That's culture. You've done your duty. You may now return to your lentils. You beautiful, broken shard of a modern comfort. You've endured war, woven despair into your wardrobe, and emotionally unravelled in a stadium while a man in a bird mask screamed about civic failure. But now we enter the true pit of torment, the crucible, the gauntlet. The reason nobody smiles in Athenian statues. That's right, we are going to school. Welcome to children, education, and other forms of state-endorsed cruelty where childhood dreams go to die and are replaced with grammar. So you wake up, not as yourself, but as a child in ancient Greece. Yes, you've been downgraded. You're now roughly 7 years old, barefoot, slightly malnourished, and, if you're lucky, only mildly haunted by the philosophical weight of your own existence. Because here, even childhood is a full-time job. Especially if you're a boy. Especially if your parents have ambitions like, I want my son to be a famous orator, or he'll grow up strong enough to lift an ox and shame my brother-in-law. You stretch your tiny arms. They hurt. Because yesterday you learned the alphabet and how to wrestle someone twice your size. And today you'll be doing it all again, in a tunic the size of a pillowcase, with a teacher who has no indoor voice. School begins. You sit cross-legged on the floor of a didascaleon, the local school. There are no desks, there is no recess, there is only scrolls, shouting, and the creeping knowledge that your future will involve a lot of memorising things while being smacked with a stick. You meet your teacher, the grammatiste. He is 47, bitter, and shaped like a statue that gave up. He hands you a wax tablet. You have no idea how to use it. You stare at the alphabet. You repeat it out loud. The boy next to you mispronounces beta, and the teacher hurls a fig at his head. You learn. Reading and writing, because you must be literate enough to argue with strangers in public. Poetry, so you can quote Homer mid-fist fight. Arithmetic, because someone must calculate how many slaves it takes to carry a statue of your cousin. Music, mainly flute, for reasons we've never emotionally recovered from. And gymnastics. Oh yes, you will be oiled, you will be flipped, you will be hurled into sand by a 12-year-old named Nicandros, who already has chest hair and rage issues. If you're Spartan, it's worse. You're taken from your family at 7 and tossed into the agog, which is not so much school as it is boot camp designed by wolves. Here, education means fighting, starving, getting whipped in public to build character, and learning to steal food, but only if you're clever enough not to get caught. You sleep on reeds. You wear the same tunic all year. You wrestle until someone cries, usually you. Graduation means, congratulations, you're now emotionally unavailable and terrifying. But don't worry, girls are spared from all of this by being completely ignored. If you're a girl in Athens, there is no school for you. You stay home. You learn how to weave, and how to obey, and how to avoid eye contact with philosophers. If you're a girl in Sparta, oh, you still train, you run, you wrestle. You throw javelins like you're auditioning to become a lightning bolt. Because a Spartan woman's job is to birth warriors and shame them if they hesitate. Happy childhood. Eventually school ends. You're not congratulated. You're simply older now and expected to debate grown men on ethics while covered in bruises and reciting Sappho. You're ready. Not emotionally, just functionally. You poor, brave sponge of cultural confusion. You've been publicly educated, privately traumatised, and philosophically bludgeoned by a 12-year-old named Nicandros. And now we step into the deep, holy, beautifully chaotic core of ancient Greek life. Welcome to the realm where logic goes on vacation and metaphors become reality. Yes, dear listener, it's time for gender, gods, and the sacred art of being confused all the time. Where Zeus can be anything, gender is a suggestion, and morality is just a game of who's watching. So you wake up, emotionally bruised from your schooling, culturally exhausted, still smelling faintly of olive oil and self-doubt, and you think, at least the gods will make sense? Number no, sweet time traveller. This is ancient Greece. The gods do not make sense. They make drama. They are, quite frankly, messy, petty, jealous, beautiful, and always watching. Let's begin with Zeus, the big guy, the lightning hurler, the sky father. You might expect divine wisdom, calm authority, heavenly compassion. Number you get horny chaos incarnate. Zeus, king of the gods, spends most of his time transforming into animals for romantic purposes. Some of his greatest hits include turning into a bull to seduce Europa, transforming into a swan to woo Leda. Swan, yes, the bird. Appearing as a shower of golden light to impregnate Danae, which sounds beautiful until you realise that's just glittery trespassing. He has so many children, no one is sure which ones are demigods and which ones are unfortunate side effects. And somehow he's still married to Hera, queen of the gods, patroness of marriage, and, how do we put this delicately, absolutely done with everything. Her hobbies include avenging betrayal, yelling in Olympus, turning people into animals just for flirting with her husband. And then there's the rest of the divine soap opera. Apollo, god of the sun, music, medicine, and overreacting. Often seen chasing nymphs and inventing instruments no one asked for. Artemis, his twin sister, goddess of the hunt, wilderness, and touch me, and I will turn you into a deer and shoot you. Dionysus, god of wine, madness, theatre. And what if we had a religious ritual, but everyone passed out and maybe ate raw meat? And don't even get me started on Hermaphroditus, a lovely child of Hermes and Aphrodite, who eventually merges bodies with a nymph and becomes both male and female. Which brings us, quite naturally, to gender. Or rather, the chaotic, philosophical, deeply confusing Greek approach to it. In ancient Greece, gender roles were very strict and also weirdly flexible, depending on the situation and how theatrical someone was feeling. If you're a man, you're expected to fight, speak in the assembly, own things, and possibly have romantic philosophical mentorships with younger males, because Plato said it was inspiring. If you're a woman, you're expected to be invisible, weave, obey, and possibly get abducted by a god and turned into a tree. Except if you're in Sparta. Because there, women wrestle, own land, yell at men, and basically run the place while the boys stab each other in the mud. It's complicated, like everything in Greece. And then there's religion. You might think, oh good, some moral clarity. Number worship in ancient Greece is a choose-your-own-adventure nightmare written by divine toddlers with cosmic power. You make an offering to Poseidon. He drowns your cousin. You build a temple to Athena. She blesses you with wisdom and an unexpected war. You forget to sacrifice a goat? Suddenly you're being chased by harpies and your crops are haunted. There are no commandments, just vibes. You don't follow the gods because they're good. You follow them because they're terrifying, and you'd like to not be turned into a tree, thank you. And yet, despite the chaos, the pantheon, the gender confusion, philosophical contradictions, and animal transformations, the people love the gods because the gods are human, just taller and louder and so much more dramatic. And honestly, that's relatable. And now we descend into the most perilous battlefield of them all. Not war, not education, not love, but commerce. You rise at dawn, your feet sore, your soul heavier than a fully armed hoplite, and your purse filled with obols, a handful of them. Tiny silver, questionably stamped discs that will get you either a fish, a cup of wine, or a hostile glare from a merchant who insists that inflation is the fault of the Spartans. You are headed to the agora, the marketplace, the pulsing, screaming, sneeze-ridden nexus of Greek economic and social life. Half mall, half court, half public shouting match. Because fractions are a suggestion here. You arrive, instant regret. It is loud, it's crowded. It smells like cheese and unspoken hostility. Stalls line the square, selling everything from pottery to sandals to aggressive philosophical pamphlets written by a man named Thrasymachus, who hasn't bathed in weeks. You attempt to buy a fish. You hold out 3 obols. The fishmonger squints at you, claims their old currency, and demands 6. You haggle badly. You accidentally insult his wife, the fish, and the goddess Demeter in one poorly conjugated sentence. You are now banned from fish. For life, you wander. You try to understand the economy. There are no price tags. There is no receipt. There is only trust. And no one trusts you. Merchants exchange goods for coins, coins for goods, goods for other goods, and occasionally just vibes. Currency varies wildly by city-state. An Athenian drachma might be worthless in Thebes, but treasured in Corinth, where it can be exchanged for a boat ride and a suspicious look. You try to pay for bread with a Corinthian coin. The baker spits on it, and on you. And you buy the bread anyway, because you're tired and afraid and slightly undernourished from yesterday's philosophy-induced nausea. And let's not forget, commerce in Greece is deeply personal. Everyone knows everyone. Your butcher knows your mother. Your olive vendor dated your cousin. The cheese merchant once lost a goat to your uncle in a drunken wager involving dice and hubris. So every purchase is also a social event, and a potential grudge, and possibly the start of a family feud that echoes for generations. You buy grapes from one vendor. The neighbouring vendor sees this. He curses you in a dialect you don't understand but feel in your bones. The grapes are sour. You eat them anyway, because that's economics. And amidst all this, the philosophers. Oh yes, the marketplace is also where Socrates himself might corner you mid-Peter and demand you define virtue while you're trying not to drop your anchovy paste. You didn't ask for a debate. You just wanted figs. But now you're accidentally engaged in a Socratic dialogue. You're sweating. He's winning. You cry a little. By the end of the day, you are poorer. wealth-wise, emotionally, existentially. You've spent your obols on bread, wine, a second attempt at fish that turned into a public trial, and a tiny clay statue of Hermes that you're pretty sure is cursed. You trudge home, no richer, no wiser, but possibly more paranoid. Because the man who sold you the statue winked far too knowingly. You wake up. It's not good. Your head aches. Your stomach makes a sound last heard during the Peloponnesian War. Your tongue tastes like regret and fermented goat. You're sick. You think, I'll go to the doctor. And that, dear listener, is your first mistake, because in ancient Greece, doctor is a loose term. Very loose, as in barely holding the tunic together loose. Enter the iatros. He is your local physician. He arrives wearing a robe, sandals, and an expression that says, I read half of Hippocrates once, and now I charge 2 drachma per sneeze. His tools include a bronze scalpel, a sponge, a list of wildly unproven theories, and a firm belief in the 4 humours. Yes, the 4 humours. They are 1. Blood, warm and wet, like a well-meaning hug for inside your organs. 2. Phlegm, cold and wet, also known as winter in bodily form. 3. Yellow bile, hot and dry, ideal for vomiting and personality flaws. 4. Black bile, cold and dry, cause of depression, doom and poetry. If you're sick, it's because one of these is out of balance. Solution? Bleed you, purge you, possibly set you on fire, and then recommend a light meal of lentils and despair. You tell the doctor you have a headache. He looks into your eyes, hums deeply and says, clearly, your spleen is overacting. You didn't even know you had a spleen. He prescribes boiled cabbage, a poultice made from figs, ash, and very aggressive optimism, a long walk, uphill, while thinking about harmony. Still sick? Time to visit the temple, because if medicine doesn't work, surely the gods will help. You arrive at the Asclepion, a healing temple dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine. You lie on a stone bed. You close your eyes. You wait for a divine dream, in which Asclepius appears and tells you, you're sick because you didn't sacrifice enough chickens. You wake up. You're still sick, but now down 3 chickens. If you're feeling brave or desperate, you might try a folk remedy. Yes, from your neighbour, who is 103 years old, has never seen a doctor, and firmly believes that wrapping garlic in wool and tying it to your left ankle cures fever, heartbreak, and disrespectful children. You try it. Your foot smells amazing. Your fever gets worse, but your neighbour insists it's working. Meanwhile, diseases are running wild through the streets. We've got plague, thanks rats, typhoid, thanks water, dysentery, thanks literally everything, and whatever that guy had before he walked into the agora and shouted, "Behold my rash," vaccines don't exist. Antibiotics are a myth. Soap is suspicious. And surgery? Oh, surgery is performed with bronze tools and blind faith. Anesthesia is bite this stick. So here you are, still sick, still breathing, somehow. Your doctor has just applied honey to your chest, leeches to your back, and said, "Sleep well, and if you live, praise Apollo." You do, you live. Not because of the treatment, but because your body gave up on dying out of spite. Let's set the scene. You wake up. Not in a palace. Not on Mount Olympus. Not even in a modest cottage with a pantry full of feta and dreams. Number, you are a normal Athenian citizen, and you are hungry. You shuffle to the hearth, open your food stash, and find a half loaf of barley bread so dense it could break a Spartan's shin. Some olives that look like they're plotting something. A single fig, maybe. Or it's a date. Or it's a rock. Honestly, it's hard to tell anymore. Now let's talk meals. There are 3. But don't get excited. You've got 1. Akratisma, breakfast. Translation, water plus barley bread plus despair. 2nd Ariston, lunch. Translation, whatever you can steal from your neighbour without getting cursed. 3rd Deipnon, dinner. Translation, the main meal featuring such thrilling items as lentils, onions, more bread, wine so strong it qualifies as a medical emergency if consumed undiluted meat? Oh darling, that's a religious sacrifice. You don't eat meat because you want to. You eat it because a goat was just ritually slaughtered in honour of Apollo, and you elbowed a child to get to the charred leftovers. And speaking of cooking, you don't have a kitchen, you have a fire pit and hope. No measuring cups, no timers, no non-stick pans. Just clay pots, hot coals, and the constant fear of under-seasoning something and angering the gods. You try to make a stew, it turns into porridge. You try to make porridge, it turns into soup. You try to make soup, it catches fire. You eat it anyway, because flavour is a modern luxury. And now we must address the ever-present shadow in the Greek kitchen. Famine. Because agriculture in ancient Greece is a gamble, and nature always cheats. There are droughts, there are floods, there are mystical crop blights that no one can explain, but everyone agrees were probably caused by that guy who didn't participate in last week's ritual fig dance. When famine hits, say goodbye to bread. Say hello to wild greens you found near a shrine. Dried beans that haven't moved in years. A truly suspicious broth made from boiled animal bones, stale herbs, and false confidence. You begin to dream about cheese. And gods help you if you're trying to host a feast. Because hospitality is sacred, and failure is divine scandal. You must feed your guests lavishly. You must pretend you always eat this well. You must offer wine, fish, figs, and honeyed pastries you definitely can't afford. You serve them with a smile, then eat crumbs in the kitchen while whispering threats to your pantry. And so you end your day, hungry, tired, your mouth dry from barley, your soul slightly wounded by lentil fatigue, and your dreams haunted by the ghost of a roasted lamb you once saw at someone else's dinner party. You drift into sleep. Not full, but not dead. And in ancient Greece, that counts as thriving. You've survived a meal of mystery grains. You've fended off philosophical harassment in the agora. But now your skin itches. You smell like ambition and communal dust. It's time to bathe. You think, a nice private moment to myself. But no, there is nothing private in ancient Greece. Not your bath, not your grooming, not your gentle sobbing under a sun-bleached tunic. You head to the public bathhouse. Because unless you're rich, or the literal embodiment of Poseidon, you don't have a bath at home. You arrive, what greets you? Dozens of mostly naked people. Water that is lukewarm. Maybe. Steam, sweat, and an ambience best described as armpit vineyard. And here's the catch. The bathhouse is not Roman luxurious. We're in the early days, remember? No heated floors, no perfumed oils. Just a large basin, cold water, and a man named Nicandros who keeps humming while exfoliating his shoulders with a rock. And the tools. Let's talk about the strigil. A curved bronze instrument, not a comb, not a brush, a scraper. Because the Greek approach to hygiene is this: why wash when you can oil yourself up like a salad and then scrape off the dirt? Step 1. Slather your body in oil. Step 2. glisten awkwardly in public. Step 3. Drag the strigil across your skin until all impurities and dignity are removed. You try it. You drop the strigil. Nicandros picks it up and uses it on himself. You never get it back. Now what about soap? Number soap is a luxury, an imported fantasy. Most Greeks clean themselves with ash and clay, mixed with water into a gritty paste that exfoliates your skin and your will to live. You smell faintly of firewood and mild panic. Personal grooming? Yes, let's get uncomfortable together. Hair removal is trendy. Smooth skin equals beauty, cleanliness, and social acceptability. The method? Fire, hot stones, rough cloth, occasionally beeswax if you're fancy and or fearless. You watch a man remove his leg hair with a heated shell. You consider dying. You attempt a similar method. You now have one hairless shin and a second-degree burn. Progress. And let's not forget the terrifying truth. Bathing is not daily. Unless you're a gym-obsessed Athenian or a priest, you bathe weekly, occasionally, when the smell starts forming its own opinions. So you lean into it, you rinse in cold water, you scrape until your skin is pink. You try not to make eye contact with the man singing to his armpits. And afterward, you dry off with linen cloth that is somehow both rough and damp. You dab on oil scented with herbs like thyme, mint, or whatever didn't rot. You walk home. Slick. Slightly cleaner. Still radiating light odour community bath.